name is Vernisa.
Hey y'all, this is Jen.
And this is our podcast, Speak Up. What's up, Jen?
Hey girl.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad we made it to episode 41.
41. I got nothing to say.
Nothing to say. Almost a 50 though.
That part.
For those of you that don't know, me and Jen are best friends, and we create this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
Yes, self-love and respect are always things that are super important to us, even when we're 41. I know I said that in the last episode, but the older we get, the more important these two values become to us.
I completely agree. So Jen, what's our title?
So I got to be biased on this one, but I think it's a pretty catchy title we came up with. So today's episode is called What Up, B? And basically we're going to get into what we're going to talk about, right? But
What Up, B?
I think it sounds cool though,
She
right?
thought of that word. I'm going to let y'all know. No, just saying.
She put the punctuations in, okay?
So, we had y'all wondering what B stood for, but B stands for boundaries. Honestly, we think it was very important to talk about this because honestly, there's a lot of shit going on that needs some boundaries placed on them, whether it's relationships, habits. I think boundaries are very important to talk about, and they're actually underrated. I feel like it doesn't get enough attention, and it's not spoke about when talking about self-love. So I think it was cool for me and Jen to touch up on this today.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. With boundaries, it's not even just in romantic relationships. It's about everything, especially with this pandemic. I feel like, if you're working, if you're a parent, if you're whoever you are, your lives are just, coming together. You can't separate things the way that you used to anymore, because most of the time you're home or you're with the same people all day, so things just get kind of put into one big ball of stress. So I feel like boundaries are super watered down during this point. But regardless of where we're at with this pandemic and everything, boundaries are super important because that's the only way you're going to keep your sense of identity, basically.
I agree. And that's the best way to keep healthy relationships. I feel like boundaries are healthy barriers, and I say the word barriers because I don't know, sometimes you need to make space for certain things. 'Cause I feel like your kindness can be taken for weakness. You can catch yourself, draining yourself, trying to please others. And it's sometimes you need to take a pause and breathe and just be like, okay, what's going on? Or I need to set a certain tone so that way going forward, things move smoothly. Because I feel like sometimes too, people don't even know they're overstepping your boundaries. Sometimes they think it's okay and they have no clue until that healthy discussion is done.
That's true. And then, yeah, you're right about that. That discussion does need to happen, because I feel like one of the biggest ways to set your boundaries is to actually talk about them, whether they're boundaries with your loved ones or, boundaries for work or whatever. They're boundaries that need to be spoken. Nobody's going to know what's going on in your head or what you like, what you don't like, how much you can handle and things like that. So if you never talk about them, no one's ever going to know. So that discussion definitely needs to be happening. And I think that's what makes boundaries so important, because it forces you to talk about your limits and, what you like, what you don't like, what you can handle and not. So yeah, we definitely need to start talking about this stuff.
Yeah, for real. Cause I'm gonna be real. The longer you let something fester, the worse that it gets. I'm been a person who didn't see the value of boundaries. I used to let people, walk, and I wouldn't say walk all over me, but I feel like people would take my kindness for weakness because I was always trying to please people, make everybody happy. Then I didn't realize I wasn't making myself happy because I wasn't setting boundaries with certain relationships and stuff. And then it's a sort of peace that you get when you do set boundaries. So Jen, what would you say a boundary is? What's example to you of a healthy boundary? What would you say?
So a healthy boundary, I guess it depends on, what we're talking about, but talking about for example, relationships, and I think this goes with all kinds. There's a such thing as emotional dumping, and I think we've talked about this before, right? But setting a healthy boundary is on both sides, right? So let's say with like a friendship. So let's say you're the one who's had a bad day and you really need to talk about it. You need a vent and everything. So you and your friend are trying to talk about it, but then and I've been guilty of this too, where it's you're just so ready to emotionally dump, ready to vent, but we don't ask the other person if they're ready to hear it. And I think, being that person on the other side also, we need to verbalize that. You know what, today's not my day either. I'm not ready to hear this. So, let's come back to it. I think that's a really good, healthy boundary. Honestly, I bring that up because, like I said, I've been guilty of that too, where it's like I just emotionally dump without realizing that the other person may not be ready for it. That's like one of the main examples that comes to my head.
And that's a bomb one, because I think it's like someone's our friend, we think like we don't have to set boundaries with them. But honestly, those close relationships, those are the most important ones to set boundaries with, because somebody you're not really close with, I feel like those natural boundaries are already kind of there. But people you're close with, it's like, oh, that's my sister, that's my best friend, my cousin, whatever, we ain't got no boundaries, we cool. But you know what I'm trying to say, like,
we don't apply.
Oh, no, we don't apply. We don't. No, but also on a serious note, like, that's when it comes in handy. And I think, honestly, like you just said, that healthy conversation, like, are you in that mental space to hear what I'm about to say? That's healthy, because, like you said, if you're the person who's about to dump or say whatever, you're more likely to ask, like, hey, are you comfortable with me venting at this moment? I think it's so much understanding in it, and then it's that way no one takes it personal, because I feel like there's been times, someone caught me off guard. I wasn't ready to hear that, and then they took it like personal, like, oh, well, why does she want to talk to me? And it's like, it has nothing to do with the person. Like, but you said we might be having our own shit going on. But I think when a healthy boundary is set, there's no confusion, and it won't mess with the relationship I have with that certain person. And then I'm gonna be real too. Jen was just talking about friends, but family too. Like, I had to learn that, because, like, me being the oldest, like, I feel like I've like always had to be like the glue for my family, like, trying to help everybody in the family and stuff. But I had to learn how to set boundaries with my own family. Like, when I say that, like, I mean, like, like with my parents, my grandpa, anybody, like, I had to like learn how to, like, okay, help out, do what you can do, but it's okay to, take that time for yourself, or just to tell your parents, I'm taking time, to I'm taking time for myself right now. I don't need, like, at the moment I can't jump and do, and then I feel like when you do that, people start to, respect you more in that aspect.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I think it goes both ways also, like, we have to learn to respect other people's boundaries. Like, I'm also the type of person who I need to process something by myself first, and then come back to it. So I tend to isolate a lot just to, like, reflect on what's been happening and stuff like that. So that's a boundary that I've set. I mean, obviously Bernice knows it's better than anybody, but, like, with other people, like, I've had to let them know, like, this is how I work, respect my boundaries when I tell you I can't talk to you right now, like, I'm going through something and whatever. And I think that's a healthy boundary to have too, because at least I'm communicating it. Obviously I come to my people and I tell them, like, what's going on and stuff like that, but, like, it's just a matter of knowing to respect each other's boundaries. And like you said, don't take things personally, realize that it's not always about you. That everybody has their own world going on inside their head, inside their heart, that we have no control over that. We don't know what someone's thinking or feeling 24/7. So we need to learn to respect when they set those limits with us, no matter who they are. They can be your best friend, your family member, anybody. I feel like we don't really think about this stuff if it's never talked about. And then there's also different types of boundaries. I know mainly within, like, relationships, like romantic relationships, we talk about this, but even, like, with anybody, some people are not very comfortable with, like, physical touch, right? So you got to respect people's physical boundaries. There's even, like, material boundaries. You got to respect people's possessions, like, always ask before borrowing type of thing. Know what kind of relationship you have with that person, if you can even ask to borrow, and it's like, people's boundaries may vary depending on what it is. Like with material boundaries, you can let me borrow a purse or something, but you won't let me borrow your car for the whole day, like, it is different types of boundaries. So same thing goes with, like, anything else, emotional boundaries as well. That's a big one that we brought up. Mental boundaries also. There's also, like, spiritual boundaries. You need to respect people's beliefs and, what their core values are and stuff. And then, of course, the big one, sexual boundaries. I think that's a really big one that people really need to talk about, because, like, we out over here doing grown-up things and expecting things of people, but, like, are we really asking our partners, like, what do you like? I like this. Am I telling this person? Are we using protection or not? These are things that we need to talk about, because those are boundaries that need to be established. Those are just some of the types of boundaries. And of course, with every person, it's going to vary, like, to what degree, I'm sorry, my best friend gets to be one of the people who like hug me and stuff like that, you know, because I'm not very comfortable with physical touch. But some people are, you know, and it's just like things we got to respect about each other. But again, we need to talk. We need to realize, okay, you know, she's comfortable with this, but she's not comfortable with that.
Damn. I hope y'all was taking notes. She broke down all the boundaries. She gets the best boundaries 101 right here. I want to say to another boundary is time. You know, I think, I don't know, I take time very serious, and I think, you know, people need to respect people's time. Like, don't waste nobody's time. Honestly, that's a big thing. I think, like, you know, if you guys are planning something or something is set in stone, you know, there's boundaries that come with that. Because it's like, I want to say, so if you're that person whose time has been wasted, learn to set boundaries with that person if they wasted your time before, to where they won't do it again, or they won't even have access to you because they waste your time. I think that's very important, you know, very important to touch up on. And like Jim was saying, like, you know, us as best friends getting to know each other, like, you know, there's a lot of learning about each other that we had to do as best friends to learn, okay, like you said, you know, this person's uncomfortable with this person, uncomfortable with that, and like you said, to respect it, because I feel like people, you can have that discussion with them, and then it's like you said, they take it personal, and then it like gets worse. But then it's like when it's talked about, it's a whole different type of thing. So it's just, I feel like communication goes a long way, and people, it's okay to open your mouth and say what you have to say, because if you don't say anything, that's how things get worse. And then there's that miscommunication, because we all, like you said, the people, like you just said, people take materials different. Some people like when they're shit, you know, the bar, you know, giving out their stuff. Some people are really territorial about it, but it's like, check in with that person before, you know, just because something that I'm cool with may not be something Jen's cool with, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So I think I'm glad, like, we're able to explain different boundaries, because there's so many limits to it.
Yeah, and then there's also like categories of how tight certain boundaries are, right? So there's like rigid boundaries, there's healthy boundaries, and then porous boundaries. So with rigid, it's like super tight boundaries where it's like you don't let nobody in, you know, nobody can borrow anything from you, you don't borrow anything from nobody else. You know, it's just more of like isolated type of thing. And then healthy boundaries, it's like you have a mix of, you know, sometimes yes, sometimes no, or depending on who it is or whatever. And then porous boundaries, it's like you got no boundaries with anybody, right? You just let anybody in. Maybe you're oversharing personal information type of thing. You know, you're letting everybody borrow stuff, but then you realize you're losing a lot of stuff. Like, you know, so we have to think about that also. And, you know, just realize that there needs to be a balance between all three of these. And then again, like, depending on who it is, they may fluctuate. Like, you may have super rigid boundaries with family because you grew up in a toxic family environment or something, but you have healthy boundaries within your friendships, you know, because you've learned to value your friendships. But then you have porous boundaries in romantic relationships, because like your person becomes your all, you're willing to do everything for them and stuff. Not saying there's a right or wrong, but it's just a moment of like evaluating, because you know, it's just like, again, finding your identity and realizing who you are and what kind of boundaries you're setting with different types of people in your life.
I think, like you just said, I think it's really like that balance, because when one cup is too full and one is like empty, that's when a relationship is at stake, you know. And then, like, so too much of anything is bad for you. So then I think that's when like that toxic relationship comes in, because when that, let's say it is a romantic relationship, that person is just being worshipped and everything else is forgotten about. That's when it's overstepped, and then I feel like that person has like control and power over you. You know. Another cool topic to bring up, like boundaries with social media. We're in a time right now, and I feel like people are worshiping social media. They're at a point, like, you know, like they're staying on longer than they should. It's nothing wrong with surfing the web. I'm not like against the internet or nothing like that, but like, you know, set boundaries with yourself on how long do you spend on there, like, or boundaries on what kind of content are you looking up. Like, is it helping you? Is it benefiting your mind? Is it expanding your mind? Or is it just junk that's making you feel bad about yourself, putting you into depression, you know, making you crave the material things only, you know? So I think that's something healthy to talk about, because that's something internally that we can all work on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I had to set a super rigid boundary with social media. Like, I'm currently on a social media detox. Shout out to Shima for that idea. But it's something it's something that I needed, because I realized that I was getting consumed with social media, not even in the aspect of like comparing myself, but more so like what's going on with our government, you know, what's going on with the atmosphere within this country and everything. Like I was just constantly like reading on stuff, educating myself. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just felt like I was getting so overwhelmed with everything, like just trying to stay on top of all the information, you know, like what else can I post that's going to help people, and, you know, just spreading myself thin and just trying to be on it like every single day. And I noticed that that was just creating something, you know, toxic within my head. So it was just a boundary that I had to set. And this is like an extreme boundary, of course, nobody has to do this. But I personally needed it because, again, if I felt like it was just becoming too much for me mentally and emotionally. So regardless, though, like we do need to set these boundaries with social media because, like Renisa was saying, you know, you start either comparing yourself or, you know, feeling like you're not on the right path because you saw somebody else on it. You know, you're just like never satisfied with yourself. You know, there's this thing of like, what is it, too much information coming at us type of thing. You know, there's a lot going on like everywhere, you know, so it's hard to just kind of try to find the balance and stuff. And yeah, like if social media is becoming your life right now, you know, just maybe reevaluate like what you're doing on social media. Like there's nothing wrong with the occasional meme and, you know, things like that, educating yourself, but like find that balance of like what you're doing on social media and how much you're really on it.
Damn, well said. And I want to say too, like whether you want to take a longer detox like Jen from social media, those are nice, or even if it's just in between, like for those, you know, I know everybody who got me on social media, yes, I do be on social media a lot, but I have moments where like I'll take like weeks off, like a week here and there, couple days off of social media, and like that's fine with me too because it gives me that, you know, because I am like a very active social media person because of like different networking and stuff I'll be doing. But at the same time, I have to remember like, okay, I can't consume too much of this. Yeah. So whether it is you want to take a nice long break or in between, that is completely fine. But I learned too with those breaks, it allows me to appreciate the smaller things in life, other things that I'm not paying attention to because I'm just looking at my phone when I can be enjoying some time with family, you know, making a phone call that I haven't made in a long time, just sitting in nature, meditating, little things that we do. We spend all these hours on the phone. That's like that commercial.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that.
I'm sorry.
ICBC college.
It was that other Everest.
Everest College.
He said you spend all your time on the phone and you're helping in your future. Okay, so basically that we spend all this time on our phone. So why not do something to help you? Like he just said. But yeah, sorry, I lost track of what I was saying. But you know, but that I feel like that is a very healthy boundary to set. You know. When you're doing something for yourself, I just feel like it's very empowering. And I think, shit, you ain't even gonna have time for BS because you're like, okay, I'm giving time to things that matter. So those boundaries are coming in handy.
That's so true. Honestly, this detox has been helping me so much. Like I'm back refocused on goals. Like I allowed myself time, you know, obviously to mourn not having social media. Like I'll admit it was like a trigger, you know, like I go on my phone, I'm like, oh, I don't have Instagram, you know, like, oh, I don't have Facebook to check, you know, so like I decided to put that energy somewhere else. So now like I'm back on my discipline and stuff like that, you know, still working on things obviously, and eventually I'll get back on social media, but like again, that's just a boundary I needed to take in order for me to get back refocused. You don't have to go as extreme, you know, do the, you know, a few days detox, and if that helps, that's cool, you know. But for me, like I said, it was just like the way I needed to handle things, and it needed to be done. But yeah, like I'm doing a lot of reading, I'm working on goals, I'm meditating a lot, I'm saging a lot, you know, spending time with loved ones that I wasn't spending time before. I'm really focused, like, you know, on our podcast, at work, you know, so like it's just helping me focus on other things that I was really losing focus on.
Oh, that's so true. So yeah, hope y'all heard that one too. Honestly, and then I want to talk about too the effects of not having boundaries. Honestly, I think when you don't have boundaries, you're just like this hamster on a wheel because you're just allowing like anybody into your life, anybody dictating what you do, how to please them. You're allowing yourself to give up on yourself, to not get disciplined. I feel like boundaries bring that discipline that we need, and it is very healthy to have that. And I think too, not having boundaries allows you to like neglect yourself and your wants and your needs, you know, in life.
Yeah, like, you know, I've been saying having boundaries allows you to establish your sense of identity because you're figuring out your limits and things like that. So if you don't have boundaries, you're losing yourself in that sense. You're either spreading yourself thin, trying to save other people, or you're just so closed off that you don't let anybody in, you know. But it's also like, you know, if you don't have boundaries with certain things in your life, how do you know you're really on the track that you want to be on, right? If you have all these goals that you want to achieve and everything, but you don't have boundaries within certain things in your life, you know, how do you know, oh, I'm dedicating enough time for this, or to this person, or, you know, to myself even. So yeah, like having no boundaries is just like, you're kind of just going with the flow, which is cool every now and then, you know, go with the flow. Sometimes we do the best we can and we just kind of have to wait on it. But other times, you know, without boundaries, it's like, how do you know you've reached that point? You know, so it's about setting boundaries, like even with your goals, you know, and just on your time yourself, right? So we've talked about time boundaries. Set that boundary with your own time, right? Have deadlines for yourself. You know, just really, write it down. Like Vernisa said, it's about that self-discipline and really knowing, okay, what are my limits here? And then, you know, what can I do differently every single day?
Yeah, and back on relationships, you know, speaking of family, like there is a time in my life where I was letting family drain me, you know, like, because, you know, no boundaries can drain you, you know. There's a time like I was just doing the most and I was stressing myself out. I could have had a breakdown because I wasn't setting boundaries with members of my family. And honestly, when I came to that breaking point, I had to wake up and realize, okay, Renise, if you was a drop down right now, who's going to pick you up? Who's going to pursue your goals for you if you just give up at this moment? And I had to really rebuild myself, and then like had to find that and, you know, start setting boundaries. And honestly, I never looked back since, because once I did that, I felt like the relationships in my family, like my family relationships are falling into place, and they're now being treated more in a healthy manner. So like me and Jen are speaking this from experience. Like, you know, boundaries are like really the key, one of the key points to happiness and peace in your life. Like, we were very serious when we said that.
No, seriously, how y'all think we glowing right now?
We trying boundaries. Like, we got it right now. We away from everybody at this moment. we isolate us.
Y'all should see this studio. And I also wanted to point out that while we're emphasizing the importance of boundaries, and, you know, you need to have them with whatever, boundaries can change throughout your life too. You know, like what you maybe used to have super rigid boundaries about, now it's more towards a healthy thing. And then also your boundaries with different people can change, because maybe you didn't realize that you did or did not like that, you know, or you couldn't handle that. So it just depends obviously on what phase you're at in your life, and, you know, who this person is to you, what their significance is in your life, or this thing that you have, you know, setting boundaries on. So yeah, like it's okay if your boundaries are fluctuating, you're still trying to figure things out. Shoot, I'm still trying to figure out what my boundaries are. You know, because now that I'm 26, my boundaries look different than when I was 20, 21.
Facts. Oh Lord.
Yeah. You know, and even with like family members and things like that, you know, my relationships, like even with my mom, has changed. So certain boundaries look different also with us. So it's just a matter of figuring out, like, who am I at this very moment, and what do I want to achieve, what am I okay with, and what do I stand for, right? And when you go from there, you're able to really more clearly define what those boundaries look like.
I like that. And honestly, I know y'all wondering, how do I set boundaries? Honestly, there's no right or wrong way. You know, it depends on who it is, the relationship that you're setting it with. It depends on your mind. Are you a blunt person? Are you more like more like, what's the word? What's the opposite of blunt? Like just chilling, laid back person. Like, all that depends. And you can be as vague or as detailed as you want. So whether that's not answering the phone, like you just stop answering the phone for that person, or you keep it G, you know what, like, I don't feel like talking today, and end it like that, or, you know, that's fine. Or if you want to break it down, you made me feel like this is, and so now that, you know, this is happening, this is how I'm moving with you going forward. You know, really speak with your heart, and obviously depending on the relationship with that person, I think that's the best way, because I'm a viewer. I've been one of those like laid back people, or I would say like wanted to please everybody, that it was hard for me to like express myself when I knew I wasn't happy on the inside. But then I came to that break point, I'm like, why am I sitting here letting people, you know, like treat me a certain way and I'm not happy? And then when I know in the day I had good intentions, so I learned how to just either not answer the fucking phone, or tell that person like, look, I ain't dealing with you today, or like, we ain't got to be friends, and it just ended, you know.
Fact.
Like, and it's okay to, and if what I want to say is, if someone's meant to be in your life, they will respect your boundaries going forward. And if they have an attitude, they being weird, you don't have to deal with that person. Like, you know, don't be afraid to set boundaries with loved ones. You know, obviously if it's an elder, obviously do it in a respectful way. I'm not saying, you know, man, I can't, you know, certain people I can't approach a certain way, certain family. But, you know, like, it's nothing wrong with a healthy discussion. And, like, someone like that, you might just have to break it completely down.
That's true. I hope y'all are hearing this, too.
That's what worked for us. I'm going to say that.
Right. Exactly, yeah. Like Bernice said, as it comes. You know, there's no right or wrong way. This is just what's been working for us. Also, with boundaries, you got to learn to say no.
Yes.
You know, I think that's the biggest thing. And then no is a complete answer. You don't have to say no because, you don't owe anybody no explanation. Maybe your elders,
Yeah, my Nana don't.
I was going to say, we love you, Nana.
I'm not talking about her. No, she does me great.
Yeah, we respect you all the way. You know, but yeah, like, you know, with people in your life in general, like, you got to learn to say no and be okay with that. You know how there's that movie with Jim Carrey, Yes Man? You got to learn to be a no man too, you know, for boundaries at least. And it's, again, about knowing what your limits are, what your values are too. Like, if you feel like you're constantly dealing with somebody who, you know, is just bringing you down all the time, or all they got to say to you are like negative things, you know, whether it's about you or about them or about other people, you know, it's okay to set boundaries with those type of people. Like, you don't have to have them in your you know, immediate circle. And then if it is like a family member you have to see every day or something, limit how much time you spend with them, how much you actually interact with them. If 5 minutes is your limit, that's 5 minutes. I have a family member who, 5 minutes was my limit with him, and that's it. You know, thankfully I don't have to interact with him much anymore, but when I did, you know, that was my time with him. So it's like, you're not being disrespectful, but you are still respecting yourself the most, and that's what you need to be doing. And with everybody, it's like this. So yeah, it's just a matter of like working on it, knowing that it's going to take some time, especially if you've never actually set boundaries with people or with this specific person or thing. You know, you're not going to get there right away. And even at the very beginning, you might not know what those boundaries are, right? Again, like, let's say going back to sexual boundaries, you might not know you don't like this a certain way until it happens, and it's like, oh, you know, babe, I found out like I don't like it this way, it don't feel good, whatever. And that's cool, you set that boundary, and be okay with setting that boundary, you know. But then also listen to other people's boundaries, respecting each other. You know, that's the only way boundaries work. If it's like a ebb and flow type of relationship where it's like, okay, you know, I respect your boundary, but you got to respect mine too.
That's so true. And like, especially with sex, if the person doesn't respect your wishes, you should 10 times out of 10 you should not be having sexual encounters with that person. So, you know, honestly, like, don't be afraid to speak up for whatever you want, or whatever is not serving you any purpose, you know, serving you no right speak. Yeah, for real. And I was gonna say too, like, you know, going off value, you know, like, boundaries remind you of your worth and your value, because, you know, I feel like too, people really start to appreciate you more when in your absence. You know, there's a couple people, like, I used to get them all my time. I used to be, like, jumping for them, you know, answering their phone, popping up, but, you know, whenever they needed me, and, you know, whatever. And then when I started realizing the relationship wasn't serving me anything, you know, like, I was getting the short end of the spoon, you know, I learned how to just, you know, do my own thing. And it's like, okay, I will call you or deal with you on my time when I'm ready. I will love you with a long arm, you know, like,
Facts.
You know, and that's a healthy boundary. It's like, you don't have to deal with a person because they called you in that moment. Okay, call them when you're ready to call them. And honestly, when people see your absence, I feel like that's when they start thinking, well, what did I do? They start reflecting on the relationship. It happens naturally. I know this happens to all y'all. Ever had somebody in your life like not really talk to you, and then you wondering, like, did I do something? But I feel like that's when they replay everything that has ever happened. And sometimes they shape up themselves. Like, you end up talking to them again, they fix it, or sometimes they're still oblivious to it. Obviously, if you want to eventually talk about it, that's fine. But what I want to say is, another way of setting boundaries is like picking when you interact with somebody. And it's okay if, like, you're not hanging with a person as much as you used to, but, you know, you can still love them. You can love them from afar. There's so many people in my life that I love dearly, but I love them from afar. Like, I literally call them when I feel like it, or I'll pop up because I feel like it, but I don't have to call because I don't have to jump because they called, and they don't have that access to me anymore. You didn't appreciate that when you had all of me, so why would I jump now? Now you're going to get the other side of me, that you're not a priority in my life anymore.
Let's take a moment to say.
Woo!
But it's true though, and that's why, like, setting boundaries relates to self-love. Y'all know how big of advocates we are for this. But honestly, because it does start with you.
Yes.
Like, no one can read your mind. No one knows what you're okay with. So the only way to be able to practice that self-love is to know what the hell you're okay with to begin with. And with boundaries, you're making it known outside of you as well. So this is why it relates to self-love, because boundaries are always fighting for you, right? And we always say, like, you got to fight for you. You got to be the one being your biggest fan, all of this. The way to do that is by setting boundaries within, you know, things in your life. And then, yeah, think about what kinds of things you need to set boundaries with. It ain't just people, you know, it's like social media, you know, it's time, it's material stuff as well, even though that has to do with people as well. But it's just thinking of, like, what are the different areas in my life that I might need to change a little bit, you know, or maybe open up those boundaries a little bit more. If you're wondering, like, why it's hard for you to trust people, you know, or why you know, run into the same type of emotionally unavailable type of people, like, you know, maybe your boundaries are a little too rigid at that moment. And again, it's not a bad thing. We all want to protect ourselves. Shoot, I got trust issues too. You know, but it's just a matter of, like, opening up teeny tiny bit, you know, and you never know who's the right person or whatever, because, you know, people are people.
Love's a gamble.
Yeah, you know, but it's like knowing that you have enough of a boundary with somebody to know that, you know what, if things don't work out, at least I knew I didn't stretch myself thin. I didn't overshare with this person. I didn't overlove this person. You know, I didn't lose me to this person or whatever. So yeah, that's why it relates to self-love, because it's all going for me. What am I doing to protect Jen every single day?
That's so true. And I think it relates to self-love too, because you're preserving yourself. Like, you're not allowing bullshit into your life. You're picking when and where with, you know, everything, you know, and, like, it allows you to map things, it allows you to think clear. Honestly, the benefits of boundaries, I think overall, is peace. Like, I haven't been this peaceful in so long, and I think it really came from these strict boundaries I've been setting on myself. And I feel like once you start setting those boundaries, you get better at it. To the point it comes natural. Like, someone come at you, you don't even think twice. Like, before, like, you, like, I feel like my patience has changed. Like, yeah, of course, like, there's people to be patient about. It depends on the situation, but I feel like if someone is like, I'm not dealing with the stuff I used to deal with, where I was like patient with bullshit. I'm more like stern about it, and I'm okay because I'm fighting for myself, and that's something that I did not used to do, and I'm proud that I can do that today, because I think when you can fight for yourself, like, that's like one of the best things you can do, and, like, you know, the forms of self-love you can give. And I want to say too about boundaries. Also, we don't have to look at boundaries as so limiting. You know, sometimes too, we need to loosen our boundaries with people. Like, there's people in our life that actually would be great assets to our life, you know, that actually love us, care about us, want to make us do great. People like that, those are people you can loosen the boundaries. Or maybe I'm going to see this person more. I'm going to call this family member more often. You know what, they do make me smile, because sometimes when we're in a negative cloud, a toxic bubble, we run from those good relationships. We got people that really love and care about us, support us. And I feel like we be so caught up in our mess that we take those people for granted that actually have been there. Like, I've been seeing that lately. I was like, I'll spend all this time focused on all these toxic people and people who are draining me, when there's so many people in my life that love me and want to see me win and want to, you know, like, that we can actually grow together and, you know, do something ambitious together. And it's like, maybe I should loosen up my boundaries with them and make more time for them. So that's another thing, another way to look at boundaries. Revalue, like, everybody in your life. And like you said, the habits and stuff. Give yourself more of those good habits.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, if you find yourself having trust issues and, like, you're attracting the same type of people, maybe you need to open up. You know, that's exactly what Vernice was just touching up on. And it's facts. Like, you know, with boundaries, you teach people how to respect you. Not even, like, you know, just being super strict with people, but also, like, yeah, you know what, I am this lovable person, you know, you are a lovable person too. Like, we make each other's lives better, but we also have that deep respect for each other, you know, because even, like, with us, yes, we say there's no boundaries, but, like, you know, there are, obviously. You know, like, I would never call my best friend out of her name. You know, that's just a boundary that we have. I think that should be a standard for everybody. But some people are cool. Like, you know, we don't call each other, like, bitches and stuff like that. It just doesn't work for our relationship. Like, I respect Vernita too much to refer to her as that. Versa. Yeah. You know, so we just know not to do that with each other. Not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just for us, no. You know, so, like, we learn to respect each other in that aspect too. And obviously so many other ways as well. Like, we respect each other's boundaries all the time. We check in with each other all the time. And, you know
when
yeah, and like being friends for as long as we have been, like our boundaries with each other has changed as well. You know, we've seen like the worst of each other, you know, like we've lived in the same room, so we know what each other likes and doesn't like, you know, what our limits are and everything. Obviously, I've grown as a person, she's grown as a person, so like we've had to really reevaluate every single step of the way. But the thing is, we've communicated every single step of the way, and we know that our friendship is too valuable to just, oh well, I'm just gonna go with it, you know, whatever happens happens. No, like relationships take work. You know, whether it is a friendship, whether it is a romantic relationship, a familial relationship, but it's about having that mutual respect for each other, because if you don't have boundaries, most likely you do not have that respect for each other.
Damn. No, that's true. Like that respect, and I think too that the other level of respect too is just you respecting yourself enough to not allow everyone access to you. I think, you know, we need to value who we are, and that, okay, yeah, that 5 minutes of my time is valuable. So I feel like too, when people know like you're dealing with you, that's a like it's a privilege. People will step to you better. Like they're gonna come correct because they know, okay, Vernice and Jen ain't gonna play. You know, Jen isn't gonna. I can't waste Jen's time. She's not gonna sit there with that because she's firm on whatever she wants out of life. You know what I mean? So I just feel like that's important. And honestly, too, just another thing we want to touch on: set boundaries with yourself. You know, I think that's the way to wrap this episode of, is setting boundaries with yourself. And that means, like you said, it's really basically the whole episode, like that discipline, you know, who to allow into your life. Like, in a day, we can talk about how fucked up somebody is to us, but we got to take accountability for how long we allowed them to treat us that way. So in a day, that's you setting boundaries with yourself, you having that pep talk, you know, that healing conversation with yourself internally on what do you want out of life and who do you want in your circle.
And, you know, piggybacking off of that, also, you know, I know some of us, sometimes we struggle with our self-talk, right? It's hard to have that positive self-talk all the time. So set boundaries with yourself on that negative self-talk, whether it's like, you know what, if I messed up, I'm going to allow myself to feel bad about myself, you know, for like 5 minutes or a whole day, whatever. Your boundaries are going to vary, obviously, depending on who you are. But be firm with that time limit on how much you're going to allow yourself to feel bad about yourself, or, you know, talk shit to yourself or whatever. Although I think that should be something that you don't do, you know, but we're our own worst critic. Yeah. So it does take time to develop these, but it's just a matter of getting started on that. Like, you know, even just switching the negativity, you know, because we're not trying to eliminate things all around. We're not saying life is roses, you know, and peaches every single day. Things happen, you know, and sometimes we feel good, sometimes we don't, you know, and, you know, so it's just a matter of like really going deep down into your mindset and figuring out, like, you know, am I being fair to myself? Am I being realistic with myself also? You know, we're not trying to set ourselves up for failure by saying, you know, oh, I'm perfect, I never mess up. It ain't about that. It's about knowing, you know what, yes, I messed up today, but tomorrow's a brand new day. I'm going to start fresh. I can't do anything about yesterday, but I can do something about tomorrow. And when you have those boundaries with yourself, you realize that things aren't as bad as sometimes we make them out to be. Sometimes we're in this like dread and gloom type of mood, and yeah, when things are going really bad in our family, in our love life, in our work life, and, you know, our personal life, like fitness, whatever, anything, we tend to sink down into that, and we forget those boundaries that we need to set with ourselves. But even sometimes we can be toxic to ourselves, so we need to really start watching what that mind is telling you every day.
That's dang well said. And honestly, love yourself through these boundaries. Love you know, love those. And if it's someone too that you're loving from far, love them through it. You know, we're all flawed. We all fighting a battle. Everyone's fighting a battle that we have no clue. Like, you know, like that they're fighting. You know, we're fighting battles people don't even know we're fighting. You know, but in the day, like that's another thing. Like, love yourself through it. Love yourself through the process. And then in the day, like I feel like, you know, that's how you ascend more into your higher self, because you're accepting who you are. Like you said, you're learning yourself, and you can think of really what do you want out of life, and what kind of boundaries do you want to set in a healthy way.
That's so true. So boundaries are important, bro. So what up, B? You know,
love that title.
You got to set the boundaries up, but you also got to learn to loosen them up a little bit.
That part. I hope y'all was taking notes. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure y'all check out our Instagram at SpeakUpJV. Check out our Podbean website at speakupodbean.com. We're also on Apple, Spotify, apparently iHeartRadio. We love y'all people who tapping in on the audio version. Y'all love bumping us on the way to work and stuff. Like, it means a lot. Every download, every stream, we appreciate all the support. Also, if you want us to rep your brand on our platform, feel free to DM us. We'll rock your merchandise, whatever, your t-shirts, and we'll also give you a shout out. Just send us an email at speakupjv@gmail.com. We appreciate all the support.
And spread the love. Tell all your friends that you got two cool homegirls who keep you up to date on what's mental health and, just self-love and inner peace. So we love y'all. Bye.
Love y'all.